Leslie?
Ready to go?
Yeah, but the fire's not out.
Close enough.
Close enough? If it's too hot to touch, it's too hot to leave. I mean, the next thing you know, you've torched our whole neighborhood.
Which is why we're not going anywhere?
Exactly.
9 out of 10 wildfires are caused by humans.
Only you can prevent wildfires.
Welcome to this edition of Lancaster Perspective. I'm Mike Miller. My special guest today, Lesley Greenwood from Fairfield County Job and Family Services. She is a foster care adoption caseworker. Hello, Lesley. How you doing?
Hi, Mike. I'm doing well.
Feeling a little under the weather today, right? We appreciate you coming on.
Well, I'm feeling a lot better, but I lost my voice over the weekend, so I'm recovering. This is not normal me.
April is Child Abuse Prevention Month.
Yes, sir.
In 1983, federal government designated April as the month, and then 1989, the Blue Ribbon Campaign came into effect.
That's right. So as folks may see around town, we have lots of blue and green materials around to raise awareness about April being Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month. As you travel down Main Street, you might notice the flags on the lampposts have a green background with a blue ribbon that say Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention. We're real proud of those. That's the first time we've had them this year, and they look really great. And then we've just had an entire month full of lots of activities, and some more to come as we close out April.
Yeah, we've got a couple activities we're going to talk about in just a little bit, but this year we're focusing on drug-exposed infants.
That's right. That's right. Last year, as the community might remember, the Lancaster High School kids did a poster that said, "We wear helmets and they don't," and primarily focusing on shaken baby abusive head trauma cases that we were dealing with. And there were 3 Gale football players holding little babies. And this year we thought, because we've seen, unfortunately, such an increase in the drug-exposed infants that are being born in our community as well as nationally, that we would kind of like to focus our campaign on drug-exposed infants. So the whole thought is a more strength-based perspective in that we're talking about helping moms help their babies. We know that when a mom is an addict and they're pregnant, they are often less likely to receive prenatal care. So the goal would be to just raise awareness to moms that are expecting and that are still using about how critically important it is for them to receive prenatal care. So Pickerington North, I believe it is, marketing class, created a few posters for us. And they're really cool.
You had a poster contest within that.
Yeah. So they created some posters to sort of hit home the Help Me, Help Her campaign slogan. And our department has been tossing around those different posters and making a decision on the winner. And then you'll see those around the community.
Well, some of the numbers we talk about drug-exposed infants nationally, it's up about 15%, about 460,000
babies born a year. Yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Locally, in 2011, Fairfield County screened in 40 reports of babies born addicted. And in 2012, through the end of February, we already had 9 reports of drug-exposed infants that we were working with. So nationally as well as locally, especially the opiate problem in our community is really, really making it difficult for us to work with some of these drug-exposed infants because of the level of care that they require.
And you've been a social worker for about 10 years now?
Yes, sir. Yes.
Have you seen anything like this with the infants? I mean,
well, it just feels like at times they are changing. When I first started, we had a really high number of kids in care, and then we kind of had a lull for a few years. And the last 2 years, it really seems like we're inching back up towards obtaining more and more children in our protective custody, which is unfortunate. And many of the families that we're working with, I would say the bulk of the families we are working with are because of drug and alcohol abuse. We've always had that as an issue, but it hasn't been what we see over and over and over again. So recovery services and addiction services are critical in helping us be able to encourage parents and reunify their families back together after the traumatic circumstances of abuse and neglect.
And I think it's good to point out for the listeners that the child goes through a lot of withdrawal symptoms. I mean, I
Yes.
know they have low birth weight and some other things that you can talk about, but just the pain of going through that also.
It's difficult to watch a baby that is going through withdrawal from drug and alcohol abuse in utero. Often they're born prematurely, so they have a low birth weight, and you see a lot of significant developmental delays, a lot of feeding issues, gastrointestinal issues, stunted growth, poor motor skills, and just the physical pain of going through the withdrawal. Often babies have to be on medication and in a more substantial neonatal kind of nursery rather than just our local hospital. So most of the babies are transferred to Columbus so that they can receive that very specialized help that they need, while often taking morphine and phenobarbital to help with the withdrawal symptoms.
One of the, in addition to working with the infants, you get involved in a program called Help Me, Help Her.
Yes.
Talk a little bit about that.
Well, we're just really trying to encourage moms that may be using and that are pregnant, that we understand that there's a stigma when you go to your doctor's office and you potentially talk truthfully about using substances while you're pregnant. But if we could please let moms know and the community know that the goal is to get you to the doctor so that you feel motivated to have treatment while you're pregnant. What you choose to do as a grown-up is your choice, but while your baby is growing inside of you, how we can help you be as clean and sober as possible so that your baby can be born with as minimal delays and problems as we can possibly help you with.
The contact number, just call the general number? What
The
should they do?
general number, 740-653-4060, is our general number to Fairfield County Child Protective Services. You can call that number for a wealth of reasons. If you want to find out about events in April for Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month, if you want to find out more about the Help Me Help Her campaign, and if you want to find out about just being a foster parent, or just more information or making a report even about alleged child abuse and neglect in our community.
I know there's a lot of activities going on. You've already had a bunch of activities going on. And I know that the calendar, that the Child Abuse Prevention Month, a lot of things have happened already.
Yeah.
But there's some stuff coming up at the this week. Actually, there's a couple different things. Story time is one, and Shad is doing that, right?
Well, a couple of folks actually.
Okay.
There's a large team of folks that are on the Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Committee, and folks from all different units in the department are represented, and it's been a real collaborative effort this year. It's really cool to see everyone join together. So we have folks from our intake and assessment department, as well as folks from our family-based care, and then folks from foster care and adoption. And this year, for the first time, through the week of April 16th through April 19th, we've had story time for children at all the local library branches, and then there's been a representative from Child Protective Services there. So that's the first time we've ever done that. I'm not really sure about the turnout yet. We'll know a little more. But I think it's a really cool opportunity and a free event for people just to come and to celebrate productive things that you can do with your family.
One of the things coming up on the 21st is Family Fun Fair at Rising Park from 10:30 to 2.
10:30 to 2. Are
you going to be there?
I don't know.
Okay.
I feel bad. Probably not. What's this Saturday? The 21st, it will be at Rising Park, and that's just included on our event calendar from 10:30 to 2, a family fun fair. So we're excited for that as well. And then our big event is coming up on the 26th.
And that's circus night.
Circus night.
And also candlelight walk.
Yeah, one of my favorite nights of the year. I get excited like a little kid. Circus night is an awesome event held by JFS as a whole, as a collaborative effort for all the departments in our building, where we hold a family fun event that's free, that starts at 5 p.m. In the JFS parking lot at 239 West Main Street, and that goes from 5 until 6:30. There's all sorts of cool stuff for kids. There's games, there's face painting. Sometimes, there's the Dare Police, so kids can look in cars and see dare dogs, and we've had fire trucks there before. We always have a reptile man.
And that's your favorite, right?
I love reptiles, yeah. I love snakes.
It's fine.
No, I don't. I'm scared of them. But kids love snakes, so the reptile man comes every year. And then at the conclusion of circus night, we have our annual candlelight walk, which starts at 6:30, which is an event that is just held to honor children that have been through the trauma of abuse and neglect, and that are specifically in placement through our agency.
And anybody can walk through this. Kids can walk. I mean, the candles are protective.
Yes.
They're not.
Yes.
And they can do that. People push strollers through.
Yeah.
They can do whatever. They go from the JFS building down to the bandstand.
Yes, we start at 6:30 at JFS, and we start lighting the candles there, and there's a protective sheath around the candles so the wax hopefully will not be dripping on you. And the street is not blocked, so we do walk on the sidewalk, and we walk from 239 West Main Street, the parking lot at JFS, right at the main entrance area, to the gazebo by Fairfield National Bank there, and we have some speakers and some things that happen just in honor of children that experience the trauma of abuse and neglect. It's always a really powerful evening.
Oh, absolutely.
Once you arrive at the gazebo, there's a large sign that has a blue ribbon, and under that sign we typically have little tea lights, and each of those tea lights has a first name printed on them, and every one of those tea lights represents a child that's currently in our placement. So it's a great event to help our community know that nationally there are children out there that experience the trauma of abuse and neglect, but also at a local level, just to really raise awareness that there are children that need us helping them through this difficult time.
We're talking with Lesley Greenwood, adoption and foster care caseworker for Fairfield County Job and Family Services. Talking out Child Abuse Prevention Month is April this year. And there's another event coming up on the 28th,
Yes.
which is a hoop shoot contest at Ohio University Lancaster. Registration begins at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, this is the first time we've done this, so we're really excited. It's going to be the 28th, Saturday the 28th at Ohio University Lancaster campus. There's no pre-registration required. You can just be there at 9 a.m. to register. If you do have questions, please feel free to call that 740-653-4060 number that I said earlier. And you can ask specifically to speak to someone about Child Abuse and Neglect Prevention Month activities and the hoop shoot on the 28th.
And that's open to just about anybody.
Yes.
Boys, girls.
Yes.
I know
Yes.
Shad and Cody and Zach are doing it.
Yes.
I know Shad and Cody. I don't know Zach real well, but I've never seen Shad and Cody play basketball, but I know they're very good at like pulling tree stumps out and things like that.
They're husky boys, yeah. So I'm interested to see how this goes. I'm interested to see the turnout. I think it's really cool that we have different folks in the department participating in different ways to try to do more things to raise awareness in the community, especially with our kids. When you can get kids to realize that there are other kids out there that may be in more difficult situations than their own, you can really start to see kids learning how to pay it forward at an early age. So it's exciting to see a fun event, but that's also raising awareness about a very serious issue.
And I know within Fairfield County, there's obviously the drug issues here that we have. Sometimes you think people just don't quite understand how bad it is.
I think it's always difficult for people to want to understand sometimes because it's sad. You can be mindful that there are people less fortunate in your community, but when you think about children that are subjected to physical abuse and neglect, it can sometimes feel really overwhelming. Like, what can I actually do to change it? And so I understand that sometimes it's still sort of taboo to talk about it. But the reality is that our community, Fairfield County, has been, we're very fortunate to have the people that we have in our community, because they believe in the call to action to making sure that kids are safe. So I feel very blessed to work where I work, and very thankful that I have such a supportive community that understands that raising awareness, even though it's a difficult subject and an uncomfortable subject sometimes to talk about, is necessary to keep kids safe.
And child abuse, it's you guys don't work 8 to 5, 7 to 4. You're working all the time, weekends, holidays.
It's quirky.
Yeah, I know just with the staff there, they're always on the go. There's always something going on, and I know we do appreciate the efforts of Child Protective Services, which is under the direction of Rich Boland at JFS. We do have some stats through February, or in February, about custody and placement activities. Children in custody, 185.
We have around 185 kids in our protective custody right now.
Wow.
That means 185 kids that we are involved with because of some type of abuse or neglect. So I think that speaks volumes. We feel like we're a small community, but Fairfield County has been the third fastest growing county in all 88 counties for quite some time now. So obviously when there's a population increase, you see a need for services increase. Unfortunately, I believe the economy has a lot to do with that. And then again, going back to the whole opiate addiction issue and drug addiction issue in our community, we're seeing lots and lots of children come into protective custody because their parents are using. And when folks are using, there's lots of cohabitation, meaning we're all kind of living in one place, kind of hanging together, and nobody's really watching anybody's kids, or we're leaving kids with people that are not the most appropriate caregivers that we don't really know very well. So we're seeing a lot of really horrible, neglectful situations, maybe not actually a physical abuse, but very neglectful situations with regard to supervision. So unfortunately, our numbers are rising.
And it can be, if you know of abuse, it can be anonymous. You can call the screeners, and they'll take the information.
Yeah, I would encourage you, anytime if you are suspicious, to call. We are required to ask you a lot of questions, so I think sometimes people get nervous because the screeners or whomever's on the other end of the phone is asking a lot of questions. It's never to make you feel like your call is not worthy. It's just, for us, we have to try to get as much information as possible. I also always like to remind people that even if your call doesn't warrant us being able to take action at that particular time, your call doesn't go unnoticed. Your call is documented. So you could be that second or third call that gives us just enough information that we'd be able to get out there and really determine whether or not there's abuse and neglect present in a home. So your calls are never not warranted. We appreciate our community, and we want you to feel comfortable calling 740-653-4060 and asking to speak to a live body to make a report of abuse or neglect if you ever feel that's necessary.
People always ask, where do the children go? And I know there's different placements throughout Fairfield County.
Our highest number of placements, obviously, are kinship homes. And kinship homes, I think people typically think about blood relation, and that's probably the highest number of folks: grandmas, grandpas, aunts, uncles, cousins, brothers, sisters. But kinship can also be someone that just has an established or significant relationship with that child. We've had bus drivers, daycare providers, school teachers, someone that says, I want to step up and I want to be able to be a place for this child to stay until folks can get their acts together and kids can return home safely. So our largest number of kids in placement are in kinship homes. But then unfortunately, if there aren't folks out there that are related to children or have an established relationship, that's when we look to substitute care, foster care, and children go to licensed foster homes.
And I know that there are some other settings that they go to, like Reality House, things like that. You might want to talk a little bit about that.
Reality House got a lot of publicity several years ago in our community, but it's a home that is run by staff, and there's someone there 24/7, and it's primarily our older independent living youth who reside there and are just learning basic independent living skills and emancipation skills so that when they get out on their own, they know how to do their own laundry, they know how to do their own bills, they can schedule their own classes for their collegiate experience. But it's more for the youth that is not appropriate for an adoptive home and is more looking to just get those skills to get out on their own and have a productive life as an adult citizen.
And we're going to talk a little bit about May being Foster Care and Adoption Month, but there is a need right now for certain areas. I know teens are one.
Always. If I could speak every weekend somewhere to say a call to arms, foster parents needed, quality foster and adoptive homes needed. I think a lot of folks think that we have a huge number of licensed foster homes in our community, and really we don't. Just because you live next to a foster home in Fairfield County doesn't necessarily mean that Fairfield County Child Protective Services is the agency that holds their license. There's lots of private foster care networks in our community. So the goal always is to have our own licensed foster homes so that we know the family that we're placing kids with if they're not able to be home with their family members. So we are definitely in need, always, for folks interested in being foster caregivers of teens and sibling groups. We've had sibling groups as large as 5 needing a place, and to separate kids is horrible, and as a social worker is one of the last things we ever want to do. We also need folks that understand that when children are in an abusive and neglectful situation, they're going to have some behavior issues. They're going to have some potentially developmental delays, some physical and emotional issues. Doesn't mean every child that's placed does, but it does mean that sometimes those initial few months of placement can be very difficult for kids because of the environment that they were used to growing up in.
And looking at the 185 kids that we talked about earlier, 90 are female, 95 are male, but there's 52 that are 12 years and above, and then there's 63 that are 4 years to 12 years, and then 70 up to age 3.
0 to 3.
Wow.
Everyone, I think, often, because there's a lot of you get a lot more public awareness about teens that are kind of languishing in foster care. You know, I think that's been the story for a really long time, and of course that's accurate, especially in our larger metro urban areas that have a much larger number of kids in custody. But if you look at our numbers today, our largest number of kids are those babies being born, 0 to 3, and primarily because of the drug exposure and the drug addiction going on in homes. So parenting an infant that's going through withdrawal, or parenting a toddler that has been a drug-exposed infant, can be a real challenge. The typical baby isn't always a real easy thing to do. They don't come with an instruction manual. And you can read what to expect when you're expecting a couple hundred times. And nobody tells you what it feels like when you haven't slept for approximately 6 months. So add a baby that's going through the physical pain of withdrawal. It takes a really special person to be able to parent and have a baby with them that is going through those kind of issues.
And May is going to be Foster Care and Adoption Month. There's a nice brochure, Every Child Deserves a Chance, that is available to you. People always ask about, well, do I need to be trained to be a foster parent?
There is an amount of training that's required to be a traditional family foster home in the state of Ohio through a public child welfare agency. You're required to do 36 hours of pre-service training. And that's me. I do that for our agency a couple times a year. So I would be more than willing to speak to you about that and what that entails. The training, a lot of people say, well, why do I need to be trained? I'm already a parent. What do I need to learn? Totally get it. But parenting kids that have been through the trauma of abuse and neglect is a whole nother ballgame. And if you are a couple or a single, the goal is really to help you think about who are your support systems, and how are you going to get through this journey with child welfare agency also being involved in your life. You're doing this voluntarily, and you're a primary member of the team, but unfortunately, once you become a foster parent, you're kind of at the mercy of a huge system with lots of people coming in and out of your life. So the training is to try to really help you get an understanding of the flexibility that is required to be a foster and adoptive parent. It's also there to help you start to get to know other people, because you really need to have a support of folks that understand what you're going through as a parent.
And the training is free. There's no charge for that. And then there's also a home assessment.
Yes.
People have to go through.
There is a home assessment requirement, because obviously we want to make sure that kids that have gone through these traumatic things of abuse and neglect, we're not placing them somewhere that unfortunately something bad could happen to them again. So there are always checks and balances. There are requirements with regard to background checks, both federal and local, with regard to criminal background. But you don't have to be a homeowner. You don't have to make a certain amount of money. You have to be able to show that you can sustain if you add more children to your home with regard to income eligibility. But there's no guideline where if you make too much or too little. You do have to be 21 years of age. You don't have to be married. There's lots of things that I think people believe that you have to be. You can have children already in your home. You can work. You don't have to be a stay-at-home parent to be a foster parent. So anytime you have questions, please feel free to call us, and someone in the foster care and adoption department will be glad to answer your questions.
Yeah, 653-4060.
Yes, sir.
Or you can go to the agency website at www.fcjfs.org.
Yes, sir.
And they'll give you some information about that. Well, Lesley, we appreciate you coming on. I know that you have a hectic schedule. You are busy all the time.
This is fun. I love to be here, and like I said, if I could shout it from the rooftops every day, I would, that we need to help raise awareness in our community.
Again, a couple major activities coming up for Fairfield County Job and Family Services, Child Protective Services. Circus Night is from 5 to 6:30 on Thursday, April 26th. Then right after that is Candlelight Walk from 6:30 to 7:30, going from JFS building down to the gazebo downtown. And then on the 28th is Hoop Shoot Contest. That's open to anybody, any age. I don't think there are any age requirements on it.
Didn't put an age restriction.
So maybe we get some of the staff here to go out
That would be cool.
do it. They can. They're pretty competitive here. So, well, again, we do appreciate you coming in.
Thanks for
and
having
have a
me.
great weekend. Hope you feel a little bit better.
I will. Thank you.
Thanks for listening for this edition of Lancaster Perspective. I'm Mike Miller. Until we meet again, let's make a difference.
Vince, they're really cracking down on safety belts these days.
What's up, officer?
I'm giving you a ticket for committing an 811.
Safety belt violation.
Compliments of Barney Fife.
We never wear safety belts. We're dummies.
Weisenheimers.
He gave us a ticket.
Man's got to do what he's got to do.